Welcome to Bots and Bytes, the ultimate tech talk podcast. Join us as we journey from the realm of AI to the boundless expanse of the cloud. We'll explore the cutting-edge technologies that are reshaping customer experiences and driving businesses to new heights. Prepare to be inspired, informed, and intrigued as we delve into the world of innovation and transformation. I'm your host, Jess Vigorito, and this is Bots and Bytes, a GTS production where tech dreams become reality. Let's dive in. Welcome, tech enthusiasts, to Bots and Bytes, the ultimate tech talk podcast. I'm your host, Jess Vigorito. Today is part 1 of 2 with Dr. Atif Mohammad, Chief Artificial Intelligence and Data Officer and CISO at Global Technology Solutions. Today's deep dive is Artificial General Intelligence, or AGI. Welcome, Dr. Atif. So happy to have you back on here again.
Thank you, Jess. This is another opportunity that you have provided me. I'm delighted and glad to assist you.
Appreciate it. Let's just start right off the bat. Can you explain in simple terms what AGI is, or Artificial General Intelligence, and how does it differ from other types of artificial intelligence?
AGI is technically a hypothetical type of artificial intelligence that would be as intelligent as a human being. Alan Turing mentioned in his research that if there's a curtain there, and on the other side there's a computer and there is a human, you as a human, when speak with that on the other side, you should not be able to recognize it's a human or a machine. And that happened pre-World War II. Even more so, it is still in early stages of development. However, artificial general intelligence, as we are watching the utilization of AI, machine learning, data sciences, and algorithms, it's pretty much in the go.
AGI is still being developed. Is it still hypothetical and theoretical?
It is mostly hypothetical and theoretical. However, since the inception of artificial intelligence in terms of machine learning, every day we are stepping near it. ChatGPT is one of the examples. Bard is another example. When you ask, I want to eat, and you left empty, it can give you many answers. That's considered generative AI, the generation of artificial intelligence context on what you have just said. However, that is leading towards AGI. This is pretty much work in progress to achieve AGI.
You've mentioned that AGI can encompass various abilities like reasoning, problem solving, and perception. Can you explain and provide some examples how AGI can be applied in different industries, especially CX or customer experience?
Yep. So let's take an example. Let's go a little bit in the history of Kmart and Walmart, where Kmart is pretty much out of existence now and Walmart is pretty much thriving. And obviously, Target is a smaller player against Walmart. The AGI application in the arena of supply chain and logistics is the biggest that is in the research at this moment, which will be tackling demand forecasting, supply chain optimization, real time tracking, fleet management, and quality control. So, AGI could be used to analyze a large amount of data on customer orders, historical sales, and other factors to make more accurate predictions and future demand, to look at the patterns on the previous. Let's say, for example, if I go and buy flax seeds or socks, or for example, if I go and buy this cover for my glasses, then that's not an indication that I'll be buying these things again unless flax seeds or socks are the repetitive thing that might happen. So that's one individual. But how many individuals across USA, for example, or Canada are buying these socks and the flax seeds? What time they came in, what was the purchase, and all that. On the historical sales aspect, AGI is applicable. Even though this is the general understanding, it's still hypothetical. However, AGI is coming in a way that it does not need a human to tell the machine learning to calculate and come up with a pattern recognition that tomorrow morning, 10 a.m., this sort of people might come in for socks. That might be a competition, a tournament happening. So that's one example. Another specific application can be to develop new and innovative solutions of supply chain and logistics challenges. For example, bridges are under construction, which roads are under construction, whether the driver should even go from there. If go from there, what are the time frames where there'll be less bottlenecks and driver can take the truck, or otherwise the driver can have a bypass. These are a few examples that in the supply chain and logistics arena. You can also look at the healthcare. IBM Watson Health is a suite of AI powered tools, and that is being used in the healthcare providers landscape to improve diagnosis, treatment, planning, and research. And that's something that Watson analyzes the images of the patient records and then aligns the comorbidities and presents it to the human physician or specialist to look into that. DeepMind Health is another example. It's a subsidiary of DeepMind that is developing AI powered tools for healthcare. For example, DeepMind Health is developing AI systems that can be used to detect cancer cells. And obviously, as a human eye, we can't simply look at that because that's an anomaly detection. And AGI is perfect to incorporate the anomaly detection. These are a few examples.
So even though it's theoretical and hypothetical, we're already close enough to it that we do have real life applications, and it's
Yep.
just going to continue to improve every year.
It's like going and in terms of the CX or the customer experience, you and me and anybody who's utilizing Walmart or a healthcare system, we are the customers. A patient is a customer to a hospital. And if it's easy for me to know that I have to go to the hospital for not for the emergency, but for some tests or some other needs, and I have the app from the hospital that is AGI oriented or machine learning oriented to guide me through the routes which I should not take because of the clogs, this 4 p.m. in Toronto or New York or even Chicago. You will never reach hospital for 2.5 hours. But if you use the domestic internal routes, you might be there in 20 minutes.
Yeah. It reminds me when I was evacuating. I live in Florida. When I was evacuating for Hurricane Irma, everyone else seemed to be just using their standard GPS, but we used Waze.
Yep.
And Waze directed us through very, very back roads. We were driving on dirt roads and by cows, but where it took other people 10, 11 hours to get out of the state, we actually hit the Georgia line in 4 hours, which is normal. Like we're 4 hours away from the Georgia line. So I thought that was incredibly beneficial to us. I had a lot of young children and animals in the car. So obviously, the less time that I spent in the car was better. And that was 5 or 6 years ago already. So it's incredible to me to think about how beneficial that was to me at that point in my life and how it's just moving forward constantly. Let's jump to the next question. The potential applications of AGI. This all sounds really promising, especially in healthcare, finance, even scientific research. How do you envision AGI continuing to transform these industries? And what benefits can it bring?
The biggest benefit that we can imagine at this very moment in the autonomous vehicles research. So the AGI's utilization in terms of using machine learning, standard artificial intelligence, and potentially creating the context. Where can be my next stop if I'm driving and I am a autonomous vehicle and there's no human actually involved in this? And what is my next step or that vehicle's next step to navigate the roads, to make the decisions without the human input? Even if the human is there, what human will do? So this would have a major impact on the transportation industry, making it safer, more efficient, and more accessible. Traffic management is the another area that systems that can optimize traffic flow and reduce congestion if you use the AGI methodologies by combining machine learning, generative AI, and standard data science practices for predicting what's next, can actually reduce. And you just have shared your Waze example, and that's like 6 years ago. So you can imagine that the AI is in action. Another area can be freight logistics. For example, AGI could be used to develop algorithms that can automatically route trucks and optimize shipping times. I just shared with you an example. Bridge is under construction. What time is the best time to cross that bridge? The public transportation can be improved by providing real time information to riders and optimizing the routes. And this would make public transportation more convenient and efficient. Air travel is another one. Air travel is already using quite a few artificial intelligence tools to navigate through to the crossing the thunderstorms and some clouds where the airliner should not go in. So AGI is very, very significant, impacting new era that we are going to look at is improving safety, reducing emissions, and making transportation more accessible. So hopefully this answers you that, because overall AGI's potential is pretty heavy. Like you mentioned, Waze, there is a Waymo organization that is developing fully autonomous vehicles that are currently being tested in a limited number of cities. There is Cruise, is another company that developing fully autonomous vehicles. Aurora is another company. OTTO is another organization. They are working since 2016 as of today, self-driving trucks. And Uber Advanced Technologies Group is also test running the potential AGI's research that they are conducting to use the Uber that we call.
I think the biggest obstacle here that I see is just getting public trust in these technological evolutions.
If there is
You
a
talk
city,
about a self-driving car, it immediately it makes me nervous right off the bat, even though I know it's actually safer than a human because it's not tired, it's not distracted, and it can instantaneously calculate statistics and make those decisions that we struggle with in the moment.
another example could be at several airports between terminals, there are trains which are driverless, and
Which
we
make me
trust those.
nervous.
Those we trust. So I'll give you an example of Minneapolis Airport. From point A to point B, there's I think terminal C that goes all the way from 1 to 25, and you can take that train and it crosses at a certain point, and there are lights and all that jazz for us humans to make feel good. Otherwise, they don't need any indicators. For example, if there is a city that only runs autonomous vehicles, it's very highly unlikely, unless a nature impact happens, that there's an accident in that area, because the repellent is there in the cars. They'll repel.
Yeah, I think part of this is also like anything that's new, exposure. The more that we're exposed to it, I'm sure the generation that's born into this will have a much higher level of trust and security in it than people who it's brand new to, like my parents who are in their 80s and 90s. This is completely radically different. There wasn't even close to this type of tech when they were growing up. So this is very frightening to them. I'm kind of in the middle here where I'm like, I'm very intrigued by it, but I still want to know the ins and outs of how does this work and am I for sure safe? So you're mentioning the challenges of scalability sometimes and transfer learning and AGI development. Can you explain these challenges in detail? And how can they affect, or how might that affect, the realization of AGI?
So the cloud computing is the biggest player in the development of artificial intelligence or artificial general intelligence or even generative artificial intelligence. When we walk from point A to point B as a human, we do not take into consideration that we are walking, we are using our eyes, we are using our ears if we are fully capable, or even if we are on a wheelchair, we're still using our eyes and ears and our hands to move those wheels so we can go from point A to point B. There are several hundreds of pointers associated with that walk between point A to point B or going from point A to point B, which involves processing. And that is called compute in the computational world, in the technology arena. To compute, we must know what it is. What are we computing? Are we adding or subtracting? That's it. There is nothing other than plus and minus. So if we are going from point A to point B, we are adding our steps. When we are coming back, we are technically adding in minus if it is the same. However, those are the steps. But what about time? It's a constant. It's adding. Whether we are even coming back, still adding. I just shared with you an example. And then the time from point A to point B, and then point B to point A would never be subtracted, would be added. However, when you started from point A to point B, there must be something that you might have to achieve, whether it's your footsteps a day, it's you're going to buy eggs from a grocery store, or you're going to go to the library and bring a book, or you're going to say hello to a friend, or you're going to play tennis or pickleball. It depends. Like you as a human or me as a human, we do these things without even considering all the variables and the data that we consume and process compute here. Cloud computing does all that, plus and minus. And when I say plus and minus, if you say when you multiply, technically that is plus. When you divide, that is minus. So that's a derivation of plus and minus. So the idea of incorporating, that's why the computers are binary, 0 and 1. So they can add or they can subtract. But that's pretty much it. When I walk from point A to point B and I wear that Ray-Ban glasses of Facebook, it's technically recording my distance. My Apple Watch is recording my steps. Where those are stored on cloud, what they can be used to figure out the pattern that I have adopted, that I'm going from point A to point B library and then coming back. And if I keep it on and do it on Instagram, then people might know that every Wednesday or Thursday I go pick the books or movies and come back from the library. That gives me footsteps. That gives me hello, hi to my friends on the way. There might be another person in the library who I said hi, and I came to be friends with that. This is all processing. That's why compute is significantly important. But to compute any of the variables, we need the data, and the data needs storage. Storage is in cloud. Cloud is an ever increasing storage, plus. Unless you delete it or you put it in the ice and, I don't want to access that for another 25 years. That's a possibility. That's one of the reasons that how we use compute and storage simultaneously, and AGI as a human, as I just mentioned, I don't even think for a second moment when I go to library, right? I know I have a book to return, and I'll not even think it becomes my second nature. For computer, this is not second nature or third nature. Computer it's a pattern.
Okay. So we are surrounded by stimuli and
Yes.
information that our brain, it's constant input, and our brain has to determine what information to push to the conscious mind so that we can make intelligent decisions.
Correct.
Do humans need to program the AI to determine what data to push to the surface and use? Or are we at the point where AGI can even begin to determine which information is the most important in developing these patterns?
Correct. So generative AI has brought in ChatGPT or Bard has brought in coding. There is a term called low code, no code solution. So an individual who does not know how to program but might want to ask ChatGPT or Bard or any such tool, please write me a program which produces a table of 13, 14, and 15. For the front's sake, a program will automatically be written which will technically say, okay, this is 13, 14, 15, but would you like to have any number? Any number. And me as a human, yes. How about 142? So it'll take 142 from me and it'll generate a table. And then it actually will give me an option to stop at 10 or 12 or 20 or 21 where I want to see the table. That's my need at this moment in generative AI. But AGI means I'm learning tables and machine has conscious enough to hear me that I am learning 2 1s are 2, 2 2s are 4, 2 3s are 6. And it just replies me back, okay, so you're learning tables. How about I help you? Not to be intrusive, in ethical and moral conditions applied on the AGI. That's what AGI is going to be. That's why I said hypothetical, because we are stepping towards it.
So that leads right into my next question, actually. The ethical implications of AGI are a significant concern. How do you suggest ensuring that AGI aligns with human values and is used responsibly to prevent potential misuse?
So the ethical and moral implications are technically related to the safety, security, the making sure of someone is abusing it. So that's where we come in the AGI governance arena. European Union is the first one which shared the ethical concerns and morality utilization in their regulations. The AGI actually needs to be governed in a way that ensures that it is used for good and not for the harm. It could also involve the creation of new ethical guidelines and standards. And there are the challenges that come in automatically that we know as human not to harm, right? Rather protect life and all that. That's why we have our 911 facility where police and ambulance and fire brigade comes in quickly to save the life. However, that's the human aspect. How to invoke or incorporate that in AGI way. As a human, we know the context already because we have seen it, we might have heard it, we might have read it. That's our previous information. AGI does not have that. It looks, make a prediction of next context, and goes with it. If there is fire, then there might be destruction. Send the fire brigade. But the idea of preconception, which we do as human later and investigate what exactly happened, and to how would it have been preventable or it would have not been preventable. So these are the ethical considerations we need to look into. That's where the researchers are working at this very moment, and to figure out areas where they can start with a small step and move to the next level.
I'm glad to hear that. And it is a bit reassuring to know that the ethics are being strongly considered and that people are working on that. We'll continue this next week. I want to issue special thanks to our guest, Dr. Atif, again, for this rich discussion about AGI and helping all of us to understand it. How can we find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn at Global Technology Solutions. And I live in North Dakota, Grand Forks, the legendary, where the Greg Brockman is from, the OpenAI's president.
Wow. Okay. You've got your little hub there. To all of our listeners, we appreciate you joining us on this captivating journey. Stay informed and inspired by subscribing to our podcast for future exciting discussions and expert guests. Thanks again for being here today, Dr. Atif. And there you have it. Thanks everyone for tuning in to another mind-blowing episode of Bots and Bytes.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Bots and Bytes. To learn more about the topics discussed in this episode, reach out to us at hello@globo-tek.com.